Mr. Minnick helping his ninth grade Python students with one of the hardest worksheets in this whole semester class, Computer Science Games and Apps. Exercise 1. You should first do a Google search for Fibonacci on the internet, and then you'll have a sense as to what this algorithm is producing mathematically. Okay, but let's begin tracing the code and do what the code tells us to do. Fib1 is a variable. It's equal to 0. Fib2 is equal to 1, and so on. Now this variable done, we studied on an earlier worksheet. See another video for this. But the variable done is equal to the Boolean value false with a capital F. It's being used as a flag variable that causes this while loop to exit when it needs to exit. Okay, notice also that the variable output is equal to 0 with quotes around it. In the current version that I'm tracing here, I should have put little double quotes around output, but I'm not going to bother. So we'll just keep the 0 there, even though we know that that's a string and not a number. Okay, so far we're ready to go, and we're going to start iterating this while loop until it ends. So we start with a look over here of the control expression, not done. Done is a false, and the not operator changes that false to its opposite, which means true. So therefore, while true. That means we do go through the loop the first time. Next step, analyze the if statement that's in the body of the loop. Is the variable fib2 less than 14? True or false? Well, yep, fib2 is 2, and 2 is less than 14. So we do have a true there, and we do go through the if statement. The if statement is pretty complicated. We first, from right to left, whatever fib1 is over here on the right, we're plugging it into the variable named temp. Well, you see fib1 is 0. So that 0 overwrites the 0 that was already stored in temp. I like accuracy, so cross out the first 0 and put a new 0 in there to reflect that. The next line of code, from right to left, fib1 equals fib2, so therefore whatever is currently in fib2, plug it into fib1. Fib2, okay, that's a 1, and plug it into fib1. So this 0 over here becomes 1. It's kind of like that 1 overwrites this 0 here. Next step, fib2 equals temp plus fib2. Interesting, but well, just do what it tells you to do. Temp is currently 0, so think of that as a 0. Fib2 is currently 1, so put a 1 there. And simplify, 0 plus 1. That equals 1, and that 1 plugs in to the variable fib2 from right to left. So cross this 1 out and put a new 1 below it for accuracy. Finally, we're down to this line of code, output equals output plus something or other. Well, do the stuff on the right of the equals and then plug it in here to whatever variable name's on the left. So what do we have over here on the right side? String concatenation is what we have on our hands. And I just now realize that I should have stressed that output. Well, I did stress it, but this output here is a string. You know what? I am going to put double quotes around it just for emphasis of that. It's not the number 0, it's the string 0. So output right here is a 0 with double quotes around it. Kind of like a cookie that you bought that still has the saran wrap tightly wrapped around it. Now you would not eat that as a human being. Maybe as a hungry dog you would, because dogs don't really have fingers that can pull off saran wrap, and they usually are very hungry. But anyway, I digress. That 0, which is a string, is being concatenated because of the plus symbol with a comma and a blank space. So that also is being concatenated with fib1, which is a 1, but we're using the string function, which puts quotes around the 1. So we're pretty much gluing together, concatenating, all three of these pieces, a 0, comma, space, 1. So the new output over here is just what I just said, 0, comma, put a little space in there, and a 1. Now, I'm not going to put double quotes around all of these values here, but just know that there's really double quotes around that. And there is this, so that just know that they're double quotes. Okay, we do not do whatever's in the else because that if was true, and therefore you skip the else. But we are at the bottom of the while loop because you see the P in print output, that P is not indented, so it's not considered part of the body of the while loop. So we loop back up around to the top of the while loop for another iteration. And I'm going to now go quicker because this is a long problem and I want to do the whole problem virtually for you. Okay, is the not of done overall a true? Yes, that's still overall true, so we go through the loop. Fib2 is less than 14 right now, so we do these lines of code in this body again. Fib1 goes into temp. Fib1 plugs into temp here. Fib2 plugs into Fib1. This one overwrites this one over here. We simplify the sum temp plus Fib2. Temp plus Fib2 is a grand total of 2. And we're putting that number 2 into Fib2. So I'm crossing that one out, making it a 2. Output now becomes whatever output was. Well, output is currently a 0, 1. So you technically have a 0, 1 here being added, concatenated rather, to a comma with a blank space. And that's all being added together with Fib1, which is 1, but with double quotes around it because of the str function. So if you glue all three of these parts together and put that into the variable output, output has now become 0, 1, 1. It's kind of like chained together. We're packing a snowball and making it larger. Okay, I am at the bottom of my loop for another go around. The loop is still true and Fib2 is still less than 14. So Fib1 plugs into temp. That one plugs into this over here, overwriting that one. Fib2 plugs into Fib1. So that 2 goes there, crossing that one. Oh, no, not crossing that one out, crossing this one out, sorry. And now these two added together, temp plus Fib2, that's a 3, and a 3 goes into Fib2. Output is now whatever output used to be with Fib1 added to the end of it. We loop back up to the top. We do the three body code here. Fib1 plugs into temp. Fib2 plugs into Fib1. And temp plus Fib2 plugs into Fib2. 3 plus 2 is 5, and the 5 goes in there. Nice little pattern is happening. You might not know this, but we're making the Fibonacci sequence here. Output now has grown, and output is now a 0, 1, 1, 2 with a 3 added to the end of it. We go back up to the top of the loop. It all happens again. Fib1 plugs into temp. Fib1 plugs into temp. That would go there. Fib2 plugs into Fib1. And temp plus Fib2, 8, plugs in here. Thank goodness we're almost finished, I happen to know. Output has now grown. I'm a little sloppy here, excuse me. I'm using a mouse and it's just ugly. But we tack on Fib1 there to the end of this output. So a 5 now is being stuck on here. We loop back up to the top. Done is still false. And we still have to go through this loop again. Temp equals Fib1. Fib1 equals Fib2. And add these together to get 13 and put that 13 in Fib2. And output now is all of that. I don't want you to use ditto marks either. I want you to carefully copy this onto your worksheet. That's just good, safe scratch work. And now we have an 8 tacked onto the end of that. Okay, we go back up to the top. Oh, so close, but not there yet. Fib 2 is still less than 14. So we have to do this again. Fib 1 goes into temp. You know what? I'm not going to do the rest of this problem for you. I think you only have one more iteration. So before you circle final answers here, you have to go through this code one more time, and I'll just tell you what's going to happen eventually. When fib 2 is greater than or equal to 14, this becomes false up here, and therefore you don't do the code that we've been doing over and over again. Instead, you do else done equals true. So at that point, you're going to be crossing this false out and putting the word true there with a capital T. And that next time around the top of the for loop, when you have a true in the variable done, the not of true is overall false, which will stop your iteration of this while loop. And you'll print output. So whatever this sequence is, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, you're going to be writing that on the line right there. Okay, finish that problem up for full credit on this worksheet. Exercise number 2. I've already started the little tracing over here in those columns. Please read these directions because I'm just reviewing some operators that we learned back in Unit 1. The double forward slash and just what happens with the percent symbol, the modulus remainder operator in a weird situation where you have a small number divided by a big number. Okay, so while num greater than 0, num is greater than 0, 123 is greater than 0, so this is true. So let's execute these 3 body lines of code. From right to left, num percent symbol 10, which means num modulus 10. What's the remainder of 123 divided by 10? Well, you can do the long division. When you do the long division there, the remainder ends up being 3. If you don't trust me, try it out. But a 3 ends up being stored into ones digit here. That's why I named it ones digit, because it takes the ones digit off the number 123. Next step, num double forward slash 10. Well, you take num, which is 123, you divide it by 10, but you chop off, truncate the decimal places. So you would get 12.3, but chop off the 0.3. So that 12 that you're left with plugs into the variable num there because we're going right to left. So that kind of removed the ones digit. You might see what's happening here. The ones digit from 123 kind of came over here into this variable. Pretty cool. Next step, you have to add, do the plus equals here, you have to add ones digit into sum of digits. The variable sum of digits gets this 3 added to it. So cross the 0 out, make it a 3, and so far so good. We loop back up to the top of the while loop. Num is greater than 0 still, so we do it all again. Num mod 10. I'll tell you what the trick is. Anytime you have any number, any positive number at least, modded by 10, it simplifies to that ones digit of whatever that big number was. So what's the ones digit of that 12? 2. So just trust me, the remainder ends up being 2 if you did the long division. So a 2 plugs into the variable ones digit, overwriting this 3. And the 2 forward slashes, well, 12 divided by 10 is 1.2. But the 2 double forward slash chops off the 0.2, leaving just the number 1. So the number 1 plugs into the variable num. Oh, cool, we chopped it down to a 1. And now the last step here is to add ones digit into the grand total variable sum of digits. 2 gets added to 3, making 5. Okay, we go back up to the top of the loop. I'm going to let you finish this problem and then tell me what prints. But do read the directions because it's a little tricky here when you have 1% symbol 10. When you divide 1 by 10, and that goes in 0 times 10 is 0, you're left with a remainder of 1. So the answer ends up being 1 here as described up here in the directions. And that's how that rolls. Finish that problem for full credit. Number 3. Oh, neat. Number 1, you're adding up, I'm sorry, exercise 2 that we just finished, you're adding up the sum of the individual digits in the original number num. Interesting. Number 3. Number 3 is a crazy little pattern also if you follow along with it carefully. And number 3, we go through the loop and we first do this line of code here. Num %symbol 10. We're taking the ones digit again off of this 123 and putting it into ones digit. That's review. And now follow the order of operations here. When you have a plus and a star multiplication, you always do the multiplication first as if there was a set of parentheses. It's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. You got to do the multiplication first. That's just what Python does. Ones digit times place. Well, that's a 3. And 3 times place is 3 times 100. That simplifies to 300. And now we're adding new num plus 300. New num is 0. 0 plus 300 is 300. So 300 plugs into the variable new num, crossing that 0 out and putting a 300 here. Next line of code to evaluate. Place equals place /10. Place is 100. 100 divided by 10. Come on, you should know how to do that from like middle school math. It ends up being 10. The variable place gets crossed out and it becomes a 10. Now the double forward slash again on this worksheet. Num basically breaks down to 12 because the 0.3 got chopped off there. We go back up to the top of the while loop, and maybe I'll do one more iteration for you of the loop. Num %symbol 10. That simplifies to a 2. The 2 goes into ones digit, just like we did up here. Follow the order of operations here. Ones digit times place would be 20. 20 plus new num, 20 plus 300. New num becomes 320. And place divided by 10. What's 10 divided by 10? 1. And what's num 2/10? 12 divided by 10 is 1.2, but the double forward slash chops off that 0.2, so num is now 1. Look at the elegant little pattern here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. We loop back up to the top, and I'll let you finish this problem. I think there's only one more iteration before you have to come down here and print whatever new num is. A hint. 1, 2, 3. It's what do you get when you have a word that's reversed and it's, oh no, I'm thinking of something else. Just ignore what I just said there. And good luck finishing that problem, but be sure to read the directions up above on how all this stuff works here in bold up here where I'm waving my mouse. Okay, number 4. Number 4 on this worksheet is 4. Two variables, num1 and num2. While num1 not equal to, that's the not equal to symbol, remember, num2. Well, are they not equal? True. They're not equal to each other. 24 is not equal to 18. So you do go through the loop. Yeah, look at this if statement. If num1 greater than num2. Is num1 greater than num2? Sure is. 24 is greater than 18. So you execute this line of code right here. Num1 minus num2. 24 minus 18 is 6. That 6 plugs into num1 according to the code. So cross this 24 out. Yeah, and make it a 6. And then you don't do the else. Because you did the top part of the if, you don't do the else here. And I didn't put a blank line in, but that's okay because print num is not part of the while loop. It's not indented. So from here, you loop back up to the top, you iterate again, and you ask, is num1 not equal to num2? Correct, they're not equal to each other. So you now look at the if statement control expression. Is num1 greater than num2? No, it's not. 6 is not greater than 18. So this time we have a false here on the inner if statement. So you do the else. You do whatever it tells you to do there. Num2 minus num1. Num2, 18, minus num1, 6, that's a 12. So you have a 12 here. It plugs in from right to left into num2. Be careful, Be careful where you're putting in your numbers over here in the right columns. Okay, so that's that. We loop back up to the top, and I'm going to stop there because I think you only have one more loop iteration. Because when num1 is equal to num2, this whole thing becomes false and it's finished. And then the output is whatever num1 is. And hey, what's LCM stand for? Least common multiple. And there are all kinds of other mathematical facts that you learned and that you should answer this question here. And that was a hint. What I just said there was a hint to answer that question. Good luck. This was a hard worksheet. I look forward to grading it.